In a different life, I was the Vice President of Development for Easter Seals in Utah. I hope you're not giggling about Utah. They won yesterday. Salt Lake City was a pretty small fundraising community. Many of us knew each other. One day I was talking to the fundraiser from Primary Children's Medical Center, and they told me a story. They said that someone walked into their office, and he talked about being a steel worker from one of the major steel companies in Utah. He said that he didn't have any children, didn't have anyone else to leave any money to, and he wanted to leave money to Children's Hospital. Now, the person telling me this story had made it clear that he thought this man who looked to him like a steel worker, of which he had his own story in his head about, probably was going to give a couple of $1,000s. What he came to find out was he had been in the stock purchase program for Geneva Steel and had collected stock through the years, and his gift ended up being $500,000. I tell you this story for a couple of reasons. First, if any of you have an extra $500,000, UUCF would be happy to receive it. But the real reason is, I think that there is a certain audacity, and it takes courage to look at the world through a lens of abundance versus a model of scarcity. If you always expect the worst or the least, chances are that is what you're going to get. This service, as far as I know, is the first time we've done a service to talk honestly about the financial future of this congregation beyond the annual campaign. We're actually going to hold a financial summit in the coming month. Where's David? What's the date on that? November 6th, which will include a presentation about some trends and thoughts about our financial future. With that said, there's something I want to share with you. Probably to no one's surprise, attendance at religious communities is down across the board. We too have been victim of this trend. There have been papers and articles written as to why, and I invite you to Google them if you like. But to me, there are three reasons. One, I think that part of this has to do with the growing skepticism as to the existence of some sort of supreme natural being. Two, late-stage capitalism and an increasing emphasis on advanced individualism and consumerism. And three, the breakdown of our community cohesion, including the realization that some of that community cohesion was fueled by systems that marginalized vast numbers of our population. I know so many people, including clergy, that absolutely see religious life in America as half empty and in decline. And frankly, there are facts and indicators of just that. But I look at Unitarian Universalism, and I think we actually address all of those three things. We Unitarian Universalists may actually be ahead of the curve when it comes to promoting a spiritual life that isn't based on certainty. Understanding the value of creating a covenantal community that supports decreased radical individualism and the realization that those who have been on the margins must be brought into the center in order for a beloved community to have a chance of existing. And then I look at UUCF. And I think because there's a vitality here that doesn't feel like we are in decline. I know our membership and our budget numbers have suffered, but it still feels like we have a core strength that is rejuvenating, that is exciting, and dare I say, feels even courageous. It is courageous to look into our future and say that we've impacted thousands of lives in this community, and we will continue to do so. It is courageous to believe that we provide a place of meaning and exploration in a world with such need. It is courageous to have a religious exploration program that has impacted literally thousands of children over 60 years. and now after the pandemic is bouncing back in numbers and levels of participation and commitment. It is courageous to have an idea that we should try and ask people to help out others during the pandemic, and believe we can, enough to have brought in somewhere around 60,000 pounds of food over the last 2 years. Yeah. These are not examples of a model of scarcity. These are examples of models of abundance, where we believe that we can do things to transform ourselves, each other, and the world through acts of love and justice. So what does all that mean on a day where we're talking honestly about the decrease in our financial resources? Our financial resources, whether we like the model or not, are the backbone of the efforts of this congregation. This is not an annual campaign sermon. That will come in February. But this is a lifting up of the importance of thinking differently about our support for this incredibly important community resource. This service is in cooperation with the newly renamed Legacy Giving Committee, which will now be known as the Future Giving Committee. And the reason for that is because this committee is tasked by the board and the generosity team to ask all of us to consider a planned gift to UUCF in your will or through a variety of other means. Now, we often don't talk about death, but as you know, and thinking about the legacy that we may want to leave behind is important, and it's an important consideration for all of us. So I'm up here to ask all of us to consider working with this committee to plan a gift for the future of this congregation. Future gifts will add to the long-term health of this congregation by adding to the base of support already started with the endowment and current planned gifts. This is actually much more important than you would imagine. The more we receive funds via this method, the more secure the financial future of this institution will be. This institution that you have chosen as an important and meaningful place to be today. This institution, I want you to think about that. You are here today because you feel that this is a meaningful place for you to be in your life. So, future gifts is actually more important than you will imagine. The more we receive this institution that you've chosen today, do we have the courage to be abundant enough in our thinking to believe we can do this and help it stay that way for ourselves and each other and for others for years to come? I refuse to believe that the members of this congregation come from a model of scarcity. I refuse to believe that we don't think that supporting this congregation financially through the annual campaign, the legacy campaign, or perhaps someday soon a new capital campaign is impossible. I was a fundraiser. I know that financial support can literally walk into your office one day and plop down a check that you would never have expected. I've seen it happen many times. I had the audacity of generosity to accept $1 million check once. I asked if they would make it out to me, but they wouldn't. It may not be $500,000, but it doesn't need to be. If enough of us make this happen, if enough of us believe it can happen, if enough of us believe not just in the present of UUCF, but the vitality of our future, we will not only survive, but this congregation, this vital institution, will thrive for years to come. May that be so, and amen.